Pop quiz. Which of these 80s ensemble comedies is an unqualified masterpiece, and which is an overrated mediocre mess? Spoiler alert, the answer is yes. Welcome to Think Thing, a channel featuring video essays about stuff, junk, and also sometimes things. Honestly, it's mostly just movies and TV, but you never know. One of these days it's going to be something way out of left field and you will not see it coming. Like and subscribe and stuff.
So how did you know Colonel Mustard works in Washington? Is he one of your clients?
Certainly not.
I was asking Miss Scarlett.
Well, you tell him it's not true.
It's not true.
Is that true?
No, it's not true.
So my wife Emily loves the movie Clue. That's not weird in and of itself. Lots of people love the movie Clue, but Emily says it's probably her favorite movie, or at least it's among her top 5. I remember seeing Clue sometime in my mid-20s, and I found it to be silly and largely forgettable.
Just checking.
Everything all right?
Yep, 2 corpses, everything's fine.
Tim Curry is good fun, and there are 1 or 2 iconic moments.
I hated her so much. Flames on the side of my face.
But the best thing I can say about it is that it's probably the best movie that's ever been made that's based on a board game.
They ain't gonna sink this battleship, no way.
But that's only really true if you don't count Dungeons & Dragons as a board game. Now, Emily is not a casual movie fan. She watches a lot of movies and has a discerning, if idiosyncratic, taste. And her love of Clue is unironic. She doesn't love it because it's bad or cringe. She just loves it with her whole authentic self. It's weird because while Emily and I have different tastes in movies, when we disagree, I can usually see what it is about her favorites that she loves, even if I don't necessarily feel the same way. I think it has something to do with how old we are when we encounter certain films. Like, if you catch certain movies at just the right age, they embed themselves in your psyche and become part of your identity, and your ability to dispassionately evaluate them based on their merits goes away. See any discussion on the internet about Star Wars that involves both Gen Xers and younger millennials for a taste of what I mean. Emily first saw Clue when she was a tween, fell in love with its goofy charm, and now that film is part of who she is. It's in her DNA, and she could never not love it.
Is your name?
John Yaya.
John Yaya, huh? And you are John Smallberries.
For me, that film is The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the 8th dimension. I first saw Buckaroo Banzai on VHS tape when I was 15, and holy crap. If you know, you know. If you don't, well, you'll just have to trust me. That movie didn't just get lodged in my DNA, it changed it. My sense of humor changed, my understanding of how exposition worked in movies changed. I was a different person after watching that film. And it's not just a warm nostalgia that I feel that makes me like Buckaroo Banzai. I will defend that movie on its merits and analyze all the ways it's amazing and changed filmmaking forever, and go on and on about the creative team and cast and timing, how it all worked together to create a beautiful, perfect storm of genius that can never be duplicated, and yada, yada, yada. So at some point in our marriage, I showed Buckaroo Banzai to Emily, excited to share this masterpiece of quirky sci-fi with my partner, who I knew also loved movies and weird humor and John Lithgow, and she was bored by it.
Of course you realize this means war.
She was also confused, like, who was this movie even made for? It seemed like it was made for children, but it was boring in the ways that movies made for adults are boring. I was shocked that she had completely missed what was, to me, an obvious masterpiece.
No matter where you go, there you are.
Our respective evaluations of Clue and Buckaroo Banzai are simply irreconcilable. These movies are so deeply ingrained in our identities that we are constitutionally incapable of separating them from our emotional connections to them. And those connections trick our brains into seeing objective value that maybe isn't really there. For fun, I looked up what contemporary critics said about these 2 movies at the time of their release. Roger Ebert wrote about Clue for the Chicago Sun-Times in 1985, and his take sounds a lot like my own. The filmmakers have attempted to make Clue into a screwball comedy with lots of throwaway gags and one-liners. Some of these moments of comedy are funny, most are not. The cast looks promising, but the screenplay is so very, very thin that they spend most of their time looking frustrated, as if they'd just been cut off right before they were about to say something interesting. Contemporary reviews of Buckaroo Banzai were mixed as well. Writing for the Chicago Reader, Dave Kerr wrote, "Richter seems to have invented an elaborate mythology for his hero. but he never bothers to explicate it. The film gives you the mildly annoying sensation of being left out of a not very good private joke.
Why is there a watermelon there?
I'll tell you later.
Both films received positive reviews at the time, too, but to hear Emily and me talk about Clue and Buckaroo Banzai respectively, you'd think we were discussing which one should take the #1 spot on AFI's list of the greatest films of all time. Taste is definitionally subjective, but I think we fool ourselves into thinking that we evaluate the qualities of media based on what we perceive to be these rational, comparatively objective ideas of what makes a piece of art good or bad. But the reality is that our emotional responses, particularly emotional responses that we experience in our formative years, play an enormous role in shaping how we think about and interact with the world. It's psychologically impossible for us to take a 4,000-foot view of something that affected us so dramatically in our adolescent and young adult lives. Not to get too highfalutin about this idea, but I suspect a similar dynamic is chiefly responsible for cultural divisions around politics and worldviews. Our rational brains get hijacked by some pretty foundational formative experiences, and we become slaves to our ids and confirmation biases.
Character is what you are in the dark. We must work while the clock she's ticking.
Since Emily will never acknowledge any flaws in Clue, and I will not back down from my eternal praise for Buckaroo Banzai, the only real answer is for us to accept a certain relativism.
The president's on line 1 calling about is everything okay with the alien spacecraft from Planet 10, or should he just go ahead and destroy Russia?
Tell him yes on 1 and no on 2.
Which was yes, destroy Russia or number 2?
We all approach these things from different perspectives, and no matter how wrong we might think another person is, the truth is that it's all relative. Clue is both the greatest comedy ever made and a silly but forgettable goof. Buckaroo Banzai is both transformational nerd cinema of the highest order and a boring and confusing mess that thinks it's smarter and cooler than it really is. It just depends on your perspective.
So what? Big deal.
Okay, so in the comments, I'd love to hear what movies you would die on the mountain defending that you know other people maybe don't love as much. Maybe mention how old you were when you first encountered them too, for fun. Thanks for watching.